just want to join the colleagues and express on behalf of my country, the President and other colleagues, the Minister of Higher Education, to thank very much the government of Zimbabwe for hosting us at the most famous Elephant Hills Resort. These are our neighbors, and thank you very much, colleague, Honorable Mr. David Howard, the Minister of Education, and members of Parliament in our midst. Also, I appreciated very much what the Minister of Zambia was saying. You know, we also are proud to see Zimbabwe taking its rightful place. During the dark days of the apartheid era, many of us got support through the countries from the neighborhood, Zambia in particular, but for education, many people came through to Zimbabwe for education, so we really appreciate this. But of course, I would also like to express our gratitude to the leadership of the AfricanBrains organization, especially John, who has become a friend. You know, when we got an invitation, I said, I haven't had even an opportunity to discuss the report from the Moroccan dialogue with our colleagues from the Ministry of Basic Education, the Ministry of Communication, and the Ministry of Science and Technology. But already AfricanBrains had a second session, so we thank you very much for bringing us together so quickly. I will quickly go to my input as South Africa just to share where we are. And in my opening statement, I would refer to the powerful words of our well-liked father, Mandela. I think it's fitting to look at this when we think about the challenges as the picture has been painted of developing a sustainable ICT infrastructure to be able to apply it to meet the challenges to implement our policies. He said, I'm fundamentally an optimist. Whether that comes from nature, I cannot say. Part of being optimistic is keeping one's head pointed towards the sun, one's feet moving forward. There were many dark moments when my faith in humanity was sorely tested, but I would not and cannot give up to despair. That way lays defeat and death. And I just thought it's fitting for us to keep going, irrespective of the challenges we have. There are numerous challenges for developing countries to keep up with developments in IT, the cost in particular, and infrastructure-related problems, lack of expertise, and other challenges. But I suppose we have to keep going. Well, to follow on the footsteps of my colleague, you know, when we talk education, education doesn't happen in a cognitive vacuum space. In our case, our education, the challenges we face today, they emanate from our history. You know, our problems have a long history and they're deep. During the apartheid era, you know, there was this racial classification, and schools, education as a whole, was then aligned, the budget in particular, aligned with that. And of course, which meant the development of knowledge growing on the other side and diminishing on the side which was least budgeted for. And today, I think that's what we face. Apartheid state manufactured inequalities and deficits. And South Africa, as a result, remains the most unequal. When my colleague corrected me this morning, they are sitting there, she said, remains one of the most unequal. And I agree to that. Because if you grow different segments of society differently, then you tend to have people with, we are extremists in the sense that you can get all the top researchers, the best companies and everything, but also the worst scenario, depending on where people were located in the social ladder. Of course, today, we are working very hard to look at South Africa today and say 2020, 2050 years, where do we want South Africa to be? And there are pillars of our policy which are non-negotiable: inclusivity, equity, and transformation. Whatever we do has to pass the test of this. Our national resolve is to invest in education and to ensure that the system is throughput driven. We are looking seriously at impact, that we need to ensure that our graduates are knowledgeable, competent, self-driven citizens. Of course, we still have, it's important the policy direction is clear, but we are not moving at a fast rate. You might see on television some of the challenges we have and so on. But there are some challenges. Education policy aims to promote access in the background of what I said is the legacy, to improve quality, also to develop research capabilities and to skill young people. Because of some of the difficulties we have even in our communities, we still have plus minus 3 million young people who are not at school and also who are not employed, which also to talk to what goes wrong at a basic education level. And hence, since 2009, our president is a real champion for education. He then pushed within the ruling party that let's split the Department of Education into two, says to allow a Minister of Basic Education to deal, to improve the quality of education quite early, starting at basic education, because if we try to catch the problems later, you find that many science, physical science, IT, all those specialist subjects, they become more complicated if a child hasn't got a solid foundation. And of course, the other challenge is network readiness. You know, we are ranked as 61 out of 138 countries on the network readiness index, which is quite a challenge. It means we still have a long way to go to be where the other countries ought to be. Well, given the fact that we believe ICTE in we can move faster if we acquire necessary competences, we are investing in ICT infrastructure a lot. We started with Centec. I will just mention them and explain them later quickly. Broadband Infraco works and easy. I think the Honorable Minister from Zambia referred to that. SANDREN, the South African Research and Education Network earmarked for education, and the Center for High Performance Computing, meant to carry the square kilometer array, which we are hoping by March we'll know whether we get it or not. Just briefly about Centec. Centec is very, very important for us. It will be building a national wireless broadband network focusing on rural community access to rural communities. The network will connect learning institutions located in the rural areas so that to each other and other institutions in the country. Also to foster collaboration and exchange of information. Centec has been allocated a budget of 500 million for the rollout of this network. And I think IT experts sitting here, they will know how important it is to have a network earmarked for education and also for a specific purpose, because often network, given their openness, you find that those who are in rural areas, they end up being left with very little to play around with. Broadband Infraco will invest to upgrade its existing network, increasing the network's capacity and reach. The upgraded network will provide a backbone for the Centec broadband network. PPI has been allocated over 300 million for the upgrade of its network. I'm just mentioning, okay, I'll pass this one. I think it was explained. South African Research and Educational Network is also very, very important for us. It's the National Broadband Connectivity Network for Public Research Institutions and Universities. And again, it's the whole idea of ensuring that the networks are earmarked for the purpose. Because if we don't do that, we don't achieve what we wanted to do. Of course, you can see how the network goes in that infrastructure. And then I'll move on quickly to the Center for High Performance Computing, ranked as #1 in Africa. It was launched in 2007 with the objective to build a world-class supercomputing facility for research, development, and innovation. The center hosts a core set of supercomputers with overall computing power of 50 teraflops and a data center with capacity of 0.5 petabytes. You can see the increased capacity of our networks there. The CHPC has also established an advanced computer engineering laboratory to develop skills for local supercomputer architecture development. The ACE lab works very closely with the design team of KT7 Meerkat project, being the demonstrator for South Africa's bid to host a square kilometer array. This is very, very important for education purposes because the project will investigate key questions in astronomy and physics, leading to breakthroughs in our understanding of cosmos and its evolution. The net outcome of this investment is that institutions of higher learning in South Africa have a network that allows for broadband connection from anywhere, no matter how remote, accessing vast volumes of information on virtually any subject. A lot of money has been put into this. We'll hear the outcome, whether we're winning the bid by, I think it's March this year. This whole idea of the infrastructure in the cloud, I think most colleagues have said we have to invest in ICT infrastructure. We call it, like I suppose all enthusiasts about IT, that it will have a small head office, virtual classroom, contract with educators from any location using broadband connectivity. Kids Maths, we had that children can start researching quickly and come up with solutions in terms of gifts and so on. That's what we call Kids Maths Early Learning Program for ages very young kids, and they can look at any other solutions. And for us, the real challenge really is to look at our 23 South African universities. We want to make sure that they are connected. Some are in well advanced in urban areas, but some are in rural communities. And in between basic education and universities, we have FET colleges, which I think in America they call community colleges. We see them as very, very important in terms of helping ill-prepared young people or young people who require skills, something similar to the program which was described by HP here, so that they immediately enter, they are able to learn, but also acquire skills simultaneously and make choices whether they want to continue with their education, going through universities, or they can start being economically active. So we are hoping that our FET colleges will absorb the millions of young people who might not be academic material, but who are good enough to pursue studies in similar interests, but provide technical aspects of that profession. We always say for every engineer, you might need about 15 artisans, and we think that's what our colleges are going to do. I'm not going to elaborate on challenges. Also, the question of career guidance is a huge agenda in South Africa at the moment, in the sense that with so many young people coming from deprived families, we believe that we are creating a website with an expert standing next to me here who is dedicating all her life in setting up systems. You know, we often take career guidance for granted. In our case, we know very well we don't have what you call critical skills, so we're committed to make use of ICT to reach out to the most vulnerable learners countrywide, so that a child growing up in rural areas doesn't think only of being a teacher or a nurse, but they start looking at subjects, matching them with careers, or whether they enter from a career point of view, they begin to see the packaging of subjects that they can take, something which many of us didn't have, didn't know. So we think through the use of gadgets, we can be able to do that. And we believe also our companies here, as they develop gadgets, they will help us a lot in terms of making sure that they're not just used for phoning, but also to achieve these things, because many young people, the majority of them, they have access to a mobile phone. Also on career guidance, you know, South Africa is very strong. I suppose it's the AU policy in terms of gender equality and the empowerment of women. So we believe it's a cross-cutting issue. As leaders, policymakers in education, women development through the use of ICT is crucial. Many of them cannot leave their families because of young children and other constraints, but through projects like the one we saw of Columbia, and my colleagues went to Samsung, also they came back with ideas that it could be very good for what we want to do, adult education and service delivery to the masses. So we hope we will have special programs earmarked for women and adults. Of course, interface between learning and work, I've said something like that. In conclusion, I just want to really emphasize a few points that we are looking for smart partnerships between governments and are also thinking very strongly about affordability of these IT solutions. And for us, that is key as a developing country, and I suppose for many developing countries, and transfer of technology to developing countries. We count on our business experts here to work closely with our universities so that we move from, we take a leap forward from being consumers to also to begin to be manufacturers of some of these gadgets that we all extremely need. Of course, also what is important for us is effective utilization of ICT tools in education, because they can enable centers of higher education to play a crucial role in developing citizens, in strengthening and deepening our democracy, inculcate the culture of human rights, and respond for the rule of law. I just need to explain here, we have been criticized because we have said a lot about the need for critical skills and have pushed a budget. We have a budget of about 37.2 billion, and of course it's in our currency. It's one of the highest over many years. But we do this because so we're not only looking at critical skills in a vacuum, we still lay much emphasis on social sciences, the humanities, because we believe the foundation of a sustainable country is not only on knowledge building, but also developing citizens. ICT solutions offer unprecedented opportunities for the region and the continent to be connected through the cloud. We've tried NEPAT, African Renaissance, but we didn't go any far, mainly because of infrastructural barriers. When I'm thinking of going to Tanzania, I think it's easier to go via Europe. So we want to work hard to make sure that we use IT to connect much quicker. There are a few questions which my colleagues will be debating during all the interactions. Key questions that will require dialogue around delivery of last mile connectivity to our existing traditional brick education institutions, especially our FET colleges and rural-based adult learning centers. Provision of digital open content for our youth, for varied learning programs and learning abilities. Linking learners opportunities and improving the employment rate of learners who complete their studies through the use of ICT applications. I think what HP program is one of the things that we're looking for. How do we contribute to the improvement of the quality of education by bridging the child divide? Leveraging mobile technology for demonstrable education outcomes and inclusivity. Consolidating our efforts toward Pan-African Virtual University. That's very, very important for us, that there could be possibilities of doing political science in Zambia and maybe something else in Kenya and so on, but we need to be connected online. And also, then finally, in conclusion, I want to refer back to another famous saying. Some of you have seen Nelson Mandela, Mr. Nelson Mandela, our former president, long walk to freedom. He said, I've walked that long road to freedom. I've tried not to falter. I've made missteps along the way, but I've discovered the secret that after climbing a great hill, one only finds that there are many more hills to climb. I've taken a moment to rest, to steal a view of the glorious vista that surrounds me, to look back on the distance I've come, but I can only rest for a moment, for with freedom come responsibilities, and I dare not linger, for my long walk is not ended. Thank you very much.